Hello, Storm fans. Welcome to episode 7 of the Let's Go Storm podcast. We're coming quickly on the heels of the 6th episode this week because we've just finished our regular season and we're just in the process of looking forwards to the playoffs starting tomorrow, quarterfinal playoffs starting tomorrow. So I'm here with Mike and with Rob. And we're going to have a good review of the weekend's games just gone, a look at the season so far and any standout performances, etc. A quick preview of the quarterfinals and the rest of the playoff games that are coming up, and look at the route to the final, etc. So I'm going to hand over to Mike and Rob to kick off. I was unfortunately not at the games this weekend, so yeah, it'd be great to hear what the atmosphere was like. Tell us about those games, a couple of outstanding performances, etc.
We started Southampton on Saturday, an 88-80 win, which was it was a performance. I think we were losing in the second quarter at half time, at half time and end of third quarter we were losing, and we came back massively in the fourth quarter. An outstanding performance from Hakeem in the fourth, defensive and Taylor up top. I think Storm fans held their own and helped power the team over the line as well, which is some of the comments from the players after the game. But sitting in the stands, I don't know what it was like for you watching the live stats, Rich, but sitting in the stands was a tense one.
It was. We were down by 6 at half time, weren't we? And we were thinking this is a bit close. And like you said, Hakeem in the fourth quarter, just like not in my house, was wagging his finger saying, yeah. And then we actually won the fourth quarter 29-14, which is what really turned the game. And then within that, Taylor got 32 points in the game. Aaron got a double-double. Sam got 9 assists, and so some good stats there. But I think the physicality of Solent caused us some issues. And Drew used his bench probably earlier than he might normally. Again, for the second time, Solent got a player fouled off, didn't they? Late on. So
more drama with the boards around the side of the court as well.
Yeah, and he kicked the Kit King Trophy cardboard thing, didn't he? And put a hole in it. But yeah, they are a very physical side. But like Mike said, the fans kept going the whole game as well, and helped them by being like what would it be in basketball? 12th man still. It's it was rocking, but we were sitting uncomfortable for some time. It was funny, wasn't it? Because Michael Darlow had been at a game with his Storm Uni team, hadn't he? And he didn't turn up. He didn't get there till, I can't remember, late Q3 or something. So Mike and I were joking after and said it to Michael as well about that's the Darlow effect, And he was like, "It wasn't me. It's not me." And it's like, well, they must be scared of you because they went hard at it when you got there. But it was, a terrific game of basketball. We've had some where we've completely outplayed teams all season, in some games all season, and you don't want them every week or every double header, for your blood pressure. But it was a great game of basketball.
It was beautiful to watch. I think as a neutral, it would have been a good game to watch. But I think Solent made it hard. Every time one of us had the ball, you just looked up. There was 3 of them in a triangle around whoever had the ball, and we just found it really hard to get a rhythm going. And they blocked Sam out of the game for 3 quarters almost, and then we managed to regroup. And like you say, the Hakeem finger wagging all the way through the fourth quarter was brilliant to watch.
But as well, the way Solent set out was to disrupt us, stop us playing full court press a lot of the time, make us take difficult shots instead of allowing us, through an easy channel or an easy 3 in the corner. They were all over us like a rash. And that full court press has made it challenging for us in other games. Solent away, Westminster away, they did something similar. You know, the physicality and the full court press is the bit that we seem to find it harder to play against. But whether it's our fitness or our quality that means that we still can win a game that, you know, in Q4 with that massive last quarter, you know, that's probably what makes us stand out from some of the other teams.
I was going to say, you mentioned that. I think I was looking through Twitter and follow BBL Fix, and they put a thing up end of the third quarter. They said Solent lead at Hemel, but the notorious Storm fourth quarter is about to start. And I think a few people have got in the habit. And when you look back at the stats, there's been quite a few games where we're behind in the third quarter and we still win.
TVC away, we got 9 points in the third quarter. We were winning by 25 at halftime or something, 20, 25 at halftime. It does seem to be the third quarter where we slightly, I don't know, take our eyes off it a bit. But Solent are a good side. You know, they've improved.
Very good side, yeah.
They've improved it throughout the season.
Always going to be a threat, aren't they? They're always going to be a threat. And I think I've noticed that as well. Certain, you know, tactics that teams play, they kind of, it's very intense for them as well. So, you know, the fact is, can they sustain that for 4 quarters without, you know, us relentlessly pushing it? And with all the different options that we've got, you know, it can be a challenge. Yeah, but, it was very hard sitting in that remote part of Ireland on the stats, just watching the numbers and messaging you lot like crazy, like what the hell is going on? You know, we were like blaming ourselves, you know, that we're not there in the room, you know, they're going to lose, or, you know. But fortunately, Mike, you came through with a bit of video at the end there, so to give us a view of what was going on. But yeah, it was tense. It was tense, you know, just watching the numbers.
What was interesting as well is, like, obviously we normally play with 2 guards. Often in the games that get a bit more physical, when he did it at Westminster, he'll take Seth or Sam out and bring Teo on. So we spent quite a big amount of the amount of the game with Teo playing and one of those 2 not, which I think was Drew, and trying to match the physicality, put a, you know, taller guy in there, a rebounder, you know, and I think we'll get to it later, but I think for the quarterfinal we may see some of that.
Yeah, it's interesting to see what you know, what they're going to do, actually, because, you know, we've had 2 games against them. They've tried a similar method in both games, you know, bringing it, you know, high press, you know, the that level of intensity, that physicality, and both times they've come up short. I wonder, are they going to try something different? Are they going to just, you know, try and fill the gaps, the bits they feel they missed out on that tactic? Because it's obviously, you know, they're one of the few teams that limited us to, you know, to the amount of points we score, right? There's not been many games that we've scored under 100. And
they're the only team we haven't got 100 past this season.
Yeah. Both
games so far, under 100.
I mean, don't get me wrong, as long as we get one more than them, right? I don't care if it's like 50, 49, right? You know,
they do get themselves in, like, obviously they've had a guy fouled out on Saturday. I can't remember what his name is, and then they have Madison fouled out when we played down there. You know, so they're on the cusp of getting in foul trouble a lot of the time, and it's how do you make them be in foul trouble is probably the tactic as well. You know, and lots of games are won in Q4 based on the fact teams get into foul trouble, and then that the other team can keep going and free throwing, keep throwing and free throwing. Yeah, and then that puts points on the basket. Yeah, you know, on the scoreboard. Sorry, and then makes it harder for the opposition team to get back in it late on in the game.
Well, I think that definitely played a fact Saturday. It was a minute and a half or 2 minutes after, I think it's Justin, their player Justin, was it got fouled out. Within a minute and a half, 2 minutes of that, Hakeem did that first of the 5 or 6 blocks that he did up the other end. So that our crowd was already quite loud going for it after he got fouled out. Their players were a bit angry. Then that happened. And well, yeah, we know what happened in the last 5 minutes after that. I think it should be a good tactic. See if we can get one of them out again.
I did have a chat with Hakeem at the end of the game and asked him whether his an amazing performance on Saturday was due to him having just been on the podcast. he wasn't sure. He wasn't sure he could put it down to that, but I think we had some influence.
I'll take credit for it, definitely.
So, and then obviously Sunday, that was a different scale of game. You know, Worthing at home, second best team. You know, seemed to have consistently been the second best team in the league, and we beat them 126-73. And at half time, we were 71-43 ahead. And you were looking around the Storm Dome, and everyone was like on their feet, cheering, going. You know, probably the best performance of the season. You know, and amazing. Amazing stats. You know, Arian a double again, 30 points, 16 rebounds. I think he got NBL Player of the Week again, didn't he?
Yeah.
Sam got a career high, 32 points, 9 assists, and then Hakeem, similarly to the day before, 9 rebounds. You know, not so many, not in my house, rejections, but it was unbelievable. It was almost chalk and cheese from the night before, wasn't it, Mike?
Oh yeah, it was. I think we arrived saying how tight this game's going to be, especially after the night before. As you walk in through the door, all 3 trophies are out there. There's cupcakes around. There's a big sign in the background saying league champions. And you think, if we're going to lose a league game, this could be it. Is the focus on the game. And I think within 3 or 4 minutes, Sam had got 3 threes, and we're like, oh, this is going to be a good performance. They're here to play, not to party. And it quickly turned into 4 quarters of just playing hard. And I don't think Worthing could cope with what we did. And you say Sam got career high 32 points. 30 of his 32 points were from threes.
You got 10 out of 13 threes, didn't he? Something like that. But you're right.
Incredible showing.
Instead of it being lined up for Seth, it was lining up for Sam early on. And everything, unlike Saturday where lots of stuff wasn't dropping, it seemed like against Worthing, particularly first half, pretty much everything dropped, didn't it?
Yeah.
And then also you're thinking, well, Solent have given us a really hard game, and we've had to play the starting 5 maybe longer than, or most of the starting 5 longer than we'd have hoped for a double header weekend. And then Worthing turn up, and you think, well, Drew's not going to manage to rotate massively tonight either. And then he did his normal 3 of the starting 5 and 2 of the bench, and then completely switch them for 2 of starting 5 and 3 of the bench. And you weren't expecting that to be available against Worthing, really, because you were expecting it to be that close.
Sorry, Rob, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Okay.
Were you saying about changes to be so far in front in the last, I think it was 2 minutes and 45 seconds, they all change 5 for 5 against second in the league. You never think you're going to be in a position to do that.
No. And I know Worthing were missing Jackman, weren't they? But they've got some really good players, and it was just you can't take it away from Storm that it was a phenomenal performance, and what a way to play just half an hour and finish a game half an hour before you get your league trophy presented. You couldn't ask for like a better performance for that.
No.
How was it?
If you look at the 2 days and the 2 games, what was the difference from the performance point of view from Storm? Because I know the opposition was different, and maybe how they set up and stuff. But what was the main difference really that you saw from our boys? I
thought Worthing don't play full court press in the same way Solent do, and they're not quite as physical. They may be like slightly like they seem to be a more talented team than Solent, but I think Solent worked really hard. But like Mike said, Sam had got 3 or 4 3-points really early. Stuff, you know, them days where some stuff doesn't drop, and then another day where stuff does. Then you get that you get the momentum going, and suddenly everything's dropping. And I think either that or Drew gave them a bit of a rocket on Saturday night. that which could well be the case that then meant, okay, we need to step up today. Because we don't want to give Worthing or Solent the feel that they can beat us, because obviously we knew it was highly likely we'll play Solent tomorrow, but also if we were to get to the final, hopefully we do, there's a fair chance it will be Worthing that get there because they have been consistently the second best team. So you don't want them on that late on in the season to be the first team to beat you, then think they've got the momentum to beat you in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I think mentality. I spoke to Teo after Saturday's game in particular, and he said he thought they'd got complacent at times, and that complacency, if that's what the message was, then that complacency wasn't there on Sunday. It was, we're going to play against a really good team, so we need to turn up and be on our best game.
Oh, definitely. And I think that shows, obviously I won't mention his name just in case anyone from Worthing does happen to stumble across our podcast. But I had a good 15-minute chat with one of the Worthing players after the game, and he said playing against us tonight was completely different feel to how they played us in the Kit King, or we played them in the league at their place. He said playing against them in the Kit King final, he said he felt like we was only playing at 80% of our capacity, and we beat them not by much. He said, but to see how we played then, he said, if that's how we can play at 100%, we'd beat anybody. And then we had a joke about sort of like the BBL trophy and us not being in there. And we were talking about how he faced playing away at London Lions. And he said, if we're playing like that, it's a different story if we were in their shoes and what we could have done, stuff like that. So to have a Worthing player have that in the back of his mind that we could show up in a playoff final, do that. And he's already said, there's no way we could touch you with the players they've got. Is that we're already in their heads and we've not even made the final. So
how was it for you, Rish? Obviously a bit chalk and cheese from watching the live stats again.
I think it was less stressful. I think we felt like it was but there was a massive amount of it was just a shame not to be there. We're having a great time, by the way. The trip was brilliant, but just not to be there. The last two games of the season, after being home and away most games, it was a tough one to miss. And then for I guess the biggest bit beyond just seeing the team playing well, I think was how the team and the fans came together at the end of the game. So I'd love to hear a bit more about that. But it was. It felt like even from not being there, it just felt special.
You want to go first on that one, Mike?
Yeah, definitely. I think the way the club did it at the end, got all the juniors to make a ring around the court, and then they brought the players up by one in number order, same as they always do, to bring them out. And they did a full lap of the court, sort of like high-fiving every kid on the way past. Then they got their medal, then they did the next one. I thought that was just a really nice way of bringing everybody together for that special moment, then giving them the trophy and having a player and staff picture, then invited all the kids to join the front, and every kid that was in the Storm Dome had a picture of all the players and everything as well. And I think it was just a really nice way to end the regular season, having everyone as a family, as they call it, the Storm family as one. It was great to witness.
Yeah, I would say that that was the best atmosphere I've witnessed in the Storm Dome. It was like Mike said, the game finished, everyone's on their feet. Everyone sends their kids down the front for the hand slaps. The players run round, the coaches run round, slapping the kids' hands and stuff. You've got me and Mike and my two girls chanting at them as they run around. If you've stumbled across the reel online, then you'll see me and Mike shouting at them. But and it's good for someone like Hannah was running around. Brian was running around. Tom, Darlow, Drew. And Drew had to be pushed to do it. He didn't want to. For him, it wasn't his glory. But the atmosphere was unbelievable, and the way, as normal, the way they get the kids and their families involved to all come together. A massive photo with loads of people in it. I'm sure you've seen that online, Rish. And what an atmosphere. And Mike and I were in there for a long time after, just talking to people like Theo and Morgan and Amy, going around having photos with the players with their medals and stuff like that. And it was unbelievable. The one thing that sticks in my mind from it, though, is the girls were going around getting their pictures with the players and that, and then they asked Drew can we have a photo, please? And he's like, why do you want a photo with me? And you're like, regardless how good these guys are on the court, you, Darlow and Tom have coordinated this to make this happen this season. But such a humble guy that he doesn't see it as his glory, as even though it's his as much as the guys on the court, which I thought was a nice touch from him. He was really he was bamboozled by why they wanted a photo with him. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Rob. I get the sense from Drew that maybe, although it's like a lovely celebration and it's like end of the regular season and the games are at home, there's a bit that is like, we're not finished yet. It's not, I'm not ready to celebrate and, until we get to there's 3 more games.
And he's right. It's like, you can't take your foot off the pedal now. You're that damn close to the quadruple, which, if anyone had said to us at the beginning of the season, if we were sitting here at the beginning of September and someone had said to you, you'll win the league this year, and that's your season, you'd have bitten their hand off. To have 2 trophies, 2 cup finals. Okay, like when we had Michael Darlow on, he said some teams were saying the Kick King was like a pre-season tournament, but we were going to take it seriously because it was some silverware. The National Cup, obviously, we'd only ever won that once before in our history. We've never won Division 1, and we've had, and hopefully we get there. We've been in 3 playoff finals and been defeated in all of them. So sitting here now with that record of what is it now, like 38 wins or something, across all competitions. We're not going to be satisfied now if we don't win the next 3 games, are we? Which is how greedy we've become based on the run we're on.
I think that's what makes it more nervous, is the fact that now we're only 3 games away. That's it. It's 3 games. It's 120 minutes or whatever, providing there's no overtime, and that's the season done. And we're so close to, I think, was it the NBL or Rebounds put out today, wasn't it? That will be only the 2nd club in NBL history to win all 4.
It was Reading Rockets.
And the last time it was done was Reading in 2008.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we'll be that, but I think we'll be the first team to win all 4, never losing a game. Because I think Reading might have lost 1 in the season. I think, as someone said, I don't know if that's true or not, but we'll only be the 2nd team ever to win all 4. And to touch on your point, you mentioned about Drew and how he was flip side of that. Obviously, we know Zariah didn't arrive at the game till late. It's quite well known among Storm fans. He had a bit of trouble arriving to the game, but him and Andre Aerosol, I think Aerosol watched the second half of it, but Zariah Taylor came back out before the presentation and he stood in the top bleachers opposite where we sit, and he watched every single player walk around and get their medal, watched the players get the trophy, and then he walked out. So he stayed and watched the whole thing. I think Andre watched the second half of it. And I know he's given the club a congratulations card and a rather nice bottle of champagne, not the cheap stuff. So I think that was a touch of class. I mean, if that's me as a sportsman, I'm wanting to watch that and use that as motivation to make sure that I'm winning the league next season. So whether that was his aim, but I thought it was a touch of class to see him stood there for the whole thing and watching it.
And I think as well, Worthing is probably the club in the league that's run most like Storm. So there is that little bit of unity, might not be the right word, but there is, because it's not a uni team, or it's not a team that's getting money pumped in from somewhere. It's a volunteer run club. People have created it. Funnily enough, he's the one player who I watched over the years, and I knew he was getting close to retiring, who I thought this guy would be mustard in a Storm jersey. He was that one guy. Well, if you he was in the 3-point contest with Jack, wasn't he? Last summer.
Okay.
He was a great player. And a class guy to stand and watch. Some people would just walk out and just leave it, wouldn't they, entirely, because it's not them,
Yeah.
So to stand and watch that takes quite a lot, and that shows what type of guy
it is a touch of class, 100%. That's an interesting point. It probably brings us quite nicely to kind of thinking about like a review of the whole of that league season, then, and what the standings look like, and what's your thoughts, Mike, on that as a season? Interesting to replicate next year, right?
Yeah. yeah, I think Rob kind of said it earlier. If you said at the start of the season we'd be league champions, you would have taken it. If you'd said we'd be league champions, played 26, won 26, I would have been, yeah, all right. But yeah, just the season in general, there's some of the results. We've had the 11 points behind at Worthing, both games behind against Solent, but a game behind against Westminster. We've not done it easy. There's been some big challenges and big obstacles, some of them self-created along the way, but I think we've handled it well, and it's been amazing to watch. 26 games, 26 wins is just, I don't think you can, I can't say anything else other than incredible.
Spotless, isn't it? You can't, it's just perfection.
I think I might have said it to you guys before, like, we're now disappointed if we don't hit 100. I other seasons we'd be singing we want 100 as we get close to 100, because it's only happening a handful of times in the season, whereas like we literally sit there and we've got like 98 and we go, well, that was disappointing, wasn't it? It's like, which just shows what level we've played on this season. We were all excited last summer when we added Hakeem to the squad. We knew a little bit about Seth. We didn't really know anything about Aaron, and you look at the season he's just had. We knew how much like Charles would bring in, and I think it's just somehow they managed to gel the kind of almost perfect squad together, haven't they, to make it, because if we are struggling sort of defensively or on rebounding or whatever, then Charles comes in and plays for 5 minutes and swings the game, or and it's hard to review the league season without just saying it was amazing, isn't it? There's been some performances like Mike just talked about that have been a bit tight, like Loughborough in overtime, that we got an alley-oop with 2 seconds left or whatever it was and went into overtime. And that Westminster game the other week was getting a bit close, was a bit too close for comfort some of the time, and so we've just got that squad that, touch wood, let's hope this doesn't happen over the next 3 games, they don't know when they're beaten, and Hakeem said, didn't he? He thought, was the Loughborough game, he was like, I'd given up. I thought we were dead and buried in it, didn't he?
Yeah, it was the one he said it was like closest to, I think, like feeling like, oh, we've messed it up.
Yeah,
for sure.
But I mean, if you look at some of the results for the season, I wasn't at that one, but TVC at home, you guys came away from it, and that was absolutely amazing.
That was a blowout and a half. That was until the Solent game, I'd say that was the best atmosphere of the game, the season as well.
Yeah, it was lively in there, wasn't it? Although the Breakers game in the Cup was pretty good atmosphere. They brought a lot of noise, actually, didn't they? They brought quite a few down.
Did, yeah. But I think Solent this weekend tops all of that atmosphere-wise. Just, incredible.
Yeah.
But just to think though as well, like every team we've played this season, we've beaten twice is unbelievable, isn't it? Or at least twice. Some we've played in cups, haven't we? But that's almost unheard of. It's games, not necessarily, but in a way you'd expect most years to, and I know they've got a different like squad now, to go away to Solent and probably get beat. Worthing, Derby away, always tough. The Hoods away are normally tough. We tend to pretty much every season have like a really good record at home, which lots of teams do, don't they? But there's often places where we've gone and found it, or historically found it a challenge, where we've just gone there and just smashed them.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. The key thing about playoffs is the fact that we're at home, and we've got the home draw. We're guaranteed quarterfinal, hopefully semi-final at home. But then on the flip side, you say we've won 26, we've beat everybody twice, and I'm sitting here the night before the playoffs, really nervous about tomorrow's game. Thanks to the club's tweet of win or go home, and it's just like, this is it. It's real now, isn't it?
But once you get into knockout competition, every game is a cup final, isn't it? So we've beaten every team at their place as well. But to have the Storm fans on, all there, and we saw against Solent on Saturday how the Storm fans just helped push them that bit harder. If you did that, for example, if you're away from home at Newcastle or Bradford, with the journey, there's not going to be loads and loads of Storm fans go to,
Yeah. It's I think the looking at how the season's finished as well, if you were to look at how, I guess if you looked at the league just based on the second half of the season, who do you think's coming into the kind of the playoffs with form? Who do you think? Because I think looking at the matchups that you've got there, Mike, I know you've had a look at the fixtures. There's a few teams that are coming into it with form. I mean, Solent are coming into it with form, right? They started, not so well for them, and they've been really strong second half of the season, making it in. We did it the hard way last year from sixth, right? We made the final, 2 away, games before getting to that final. So, despite, I know it's been, we're top, but there's some teams that are coming into it with some form.
There's some teams that are coming into it with some form, and scarily, there's one team that's coming into it out of form, which is the team we play on Saturday. Tomorrow. Solent have actually only won 1 of their last 5 games. So they're coming into it out of form, and then you're going into a cup competition, which is almost a reset. Forget about the last 5 games for them almost, and they can start again. But team in form is Reading. Reading have won 5 in a row. Obviously, we've won 5 in a row as well, obviously. But Reading have won 5 in a row as well.
But then
their only game they've lost in the last 6 is against Loughborough, who they play tomorrow in the playoffs.
Loughborough beat Derby twice home and away in the last couple of weeks as well, haven't they? Which is no mean feat. So it looks like Loughborough are hit form at the right time as well.
Yeah, so I think 2 form teams. You've got Reading and Loughborough up against each other, right? 2 basically fourth and 5th in really good form.
In really good form, interesting. It's at Reading. When I looked back at the fixtures for both those teams this season as well, the away teams won both legs, so they've tied 1-1 this series in this season. The away teams won both games. Reading won away at Loughborough in December, and Loughborough won in March at Reading. So Reading are going into it in form. Their last defeat was against Loughborough. Loughborough are away at Reading. It's a hard game to call that one, and obviously we could potentially play the winner of that.
Yeah, it's a great venue as well at Reading, isn't it? It's
I really like it.
Their fans are really great, make a lot of noise as well. So maybe that spurred on Loughborough last time, but I'm sure Reading will be hoping that they give the team a boost. That's going to be a tight game, I think.
That will be a good game, and it'll be a good showcase for the NBL as well.
I think that's the only game when you look at the quarterfinals. That's the only game where I wouldn't like to make a bold commitment to who's going to win. I think the other 3 games I could probably have a good stab at it, but that one, I couldn't call it.
So what other games are there, Mike?
So obviously Hemel Solent, you've got Worthing versus Bradford, and Worthing are 2-0 up against them this series. They played against them last weekend with a 10-point win, and then you've got Derby versus you're gonna stump me here because I can't remember who Derby are playing now.
TVC.
TVC. That's
TVC.
TVC.
So the Worthing Bradford one is difficult to see a non-Worthing win, depending on what happened last week. In that sense, we were phenomenal, but they also weren't as good as they can be. But it's hard to see Worthing not beating Bradford. But TVC are another team that are gradually sneaking into form, aren't they? Bode was NBL Player of the Week a few weeks back. They're always in the playoffs, and they're really hard to just discount TVC. So they're away at Derby. Derby have last 2 games lost to Loughborough. The last
Derby TVC game finished 114-113 as well. So and again, I think Derby have won both games, but that second one in February, which isn't that long ago, they won by 1 point.
This is what I'm talking about form, right?
Yeah.
TVC coming into this in form, right? Looking good. I don't know, Mike. I think I'm feeling TVC in that one. I know it's going to be a tight game, but I can see TBC getting there.
Yeah, and I haven't looked at the in-depth of Derby, but Derby couldn't finish higher than third. They couldn't finish lower than third going into the weekend. So did they have some rotation maybe to save themselves for this weekend? Because they've had a long season as well with the BBL Trophy, the NBL final. They got to the Kick King semi as well. They've had a long season, same as we have.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they've rested anyone for that defeat in both games. I think the second game against Loughborough, they lost in the last second as well. I think it was 4 seconds to go when they lost.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, again, I think you're right. TVC could spring a surprise, but I don't know. I don't know if I could see past Derby in that personally. But I get your point, TVC. And we made that joke with Hakeem last week, didn't we? We could see Hemel TVC final.
Yeah, I'm with Rish. I think if there's going to Reading Loughborough, I don't think whoever wins that, you wouldn't see it as an upset. Obviously, if Solent were to beat Storm, that can't happen, but that's an upset. If Bradford were to win at Worthing, that's an upset. I think TBC, if they won at Derby, that would be seen as an upset just because of how the season's gone. But that's the one. If someone said to me which game do you think is going to have the upset in it, I would say that as well.
So are we saying potentially? We always say in every playoff series, there's always a big shock. If we're not saying it's Derby, TBC is the big shock. Are we saying it's Derby, whoever they play in the semi-final to get to the final? Because we can't say the shock's going to be Storm going out, right? So,
well, look, I'm looking at it like this, right? So you've got on the other side of the draw, right, which is you've got Worthing v Bradford. We're kind of saying Worthing. We think home. It's a long journey for Bradford to come down. They've got a great starting five, but maybe not have the depth to beat Worthing. And they're going to play against either Derby or TBC on that side of the draw. I think once you get through this first round, I don't know if there's an upset, in any of them, because I think they're close. They're going to be close games. I think if you've got Worthing against TBC or Worthing against Derby, that's going to be a tight game. I don't think that's going to be an easy game. The thing I don't want to talk about, and Norris does, the upsets are really on our side of the draw.
26-0. They're going to be, aren't they?
Yeah. And we've just spoken about the Solent game at the weekend that we won by 8 points. Solent away, we won by 4 points, didn't we? So they've probably pushed us as hard, if not harder than anyone all season. In the games we've played.
I think there's two ways we look at that, Rob. Is they've either going to come into it thinking we almost got there, like we can just do this little bit and get there, or we throw everything at Storm and they still beat us. I don't know what their mindset's going to be. I'm assuming it'll probably be the first one. But
playoffs as well, though, isn't it? Like we said, anything can happen in playoffs, and I know it's a slightly different team now. They've got a couple of players still that played in the final against us last year, but from a mentality point of view, from Storm, 2 years in a row we've played them in the final. Now we're playing them in a quarterfinal. It's that Solent have stopped us potentially. 2 years in a row, could be a third in a row from getting what we want. So there is that mentality going into it.
The one bit we do have is history on our side. So tomorrow, the same day as the Solent game, is 5 years ago to the day since we went down to Solent in the semi-final of the playoffs. I was one of the people that went down to watch it, not expecting to get any, not expecting to progress to the final, and going down there and beating who were probably the best team in the league even then, and that was one of the best Storm performances I've seen since I've been going. We beat them by 10 points, 82-72. A team that had Michael Darlow in it, Jack Burnell, AJ Roberts was, and then Wayne Yaboa were MVPs kind of that year, and Walid Mimouni and Bode were in it. So we had a good team, but we weren't expecting to go down there and win. So hopefully there's that little bit. I know what you said, Mike. Last 2 years they've pipped us in the playoff final. Hopefully that it's not a playoff final. We know we can beat them. We've got a bit of history on our side of beating them in the playoffs, not in the final. Hopefully that's all we need. Be interesting actually if we get through that, because it's Reading or Loughborough, and we've just discussed that's a real tough game to call. Reading are sick of the sight of us, though, aren't they? We've played them 4 times this season. You know, we played them in the league. We beat them at home 114-82. We beat them away 103-79. We played them early on in the Kit King semi-final at their place and beat them 100-69. And I remember coming away from that thinking, we've just beaten a really good side. We've hammered a really good side. You know, we've got a really good team this season. That was a game that kind of made me start thinking that. And then we played them as well on our run to the National Cup in the 5th round at home and beat them 106-77. So if we get there, even if Reading are the team in form, that 4 games are going to say they're going to either come at it and go, right, it's our cup final, we've just got to go and put everything out on the court, or they're going to come into it and go, Storm have hammered us 4 times already this season, you know. Whereas Loughborough a little bit different, isn't it? We beat them at home 105-79, but they are the only team. They are the team that's come closest to beating us on this run. I think it was like 2 seconds left, wasn't it? Where there was the Sam Aaron alley-oop that got us the draw, which then we sent into overtime, and then we ran away with it then, didn't we? Winning 108-99. But again,
we came right back in that as well. If you remember, we were like 8 points back with like 40 seconds left or something like that. And it was looking over, right?
Yeah.
And then we managed to turn that around, and still, even with those, like whatever it was, 1.82 seconds, something like that left on the clock, we managed to one of the standout moments of the season really was that pass and the alley-oop. But I think any of them are going to be difficult. I think I seem to remember against Reading early on in the season, I think I'd been to the Reading ground more than the Storm ground at one point. We played them so many times at the beginning, didn't we?
Quite a lot of us went to. I think I went to the Kit King game, the semi-final.
Yeah.
I didn't make the league game, but the semi-final, it was. It was a great venue and a great result as well.
Yeah.
But it just shows, doesn't it? You know, and it should be the case. In playoffs, the games, you know, you should be looking at the games going, this will be a good game. That's the whole idea of the playoffs, isn't it? If you've got the team that finishes top and it just goes and annihilates the team that finish 8th, it almost makes the playoffs a bit, you know, unnecessary. And I know the playoffs work because it's an American sport and whatnot, but you want decent games.
Yeah.
And if we play Reading or Loughborough, if we get to the semi-final, we play Reading or Loughborough, that will be a good game. If we get to the final and we play Worthing or Derby or TVC or Bradford, that will be a good game as well. You know, I hope we haven't jinxed it down. I
was going to say, you've teed it up quite nicely there, Rob. Predictions for the final. What are we? I know between the 3 of us, we've briefly spoke about it before, but what's everyone's thoughts on the final? If we get there, who do you think we could play?
I think I'll go first. It's I think the obvious one is us Worthing, right? I think that's the obvious one. I've had it since I think the draw. Got a sneaky feeling it's going to be us and TVC. I think Thames Valley are going to be a problem for everyone, and I could see them making the final, and that would be kind of awesome as well. But you know, as a final, you know, to have, you know, and again, I think that would be an interesting final in that it's, you know, that they've been close games. We've had some tight ones with them as well. You know, there's always the back and forth, the history, etc. But got a funny feeling
the crossover of players in the summer as well. It could be scripted.
Yeah, it's a lot of ends to tie up, isn't there? With that, you know, to come together in the final would be great.
I can kind of see TVC getting there, but it is really hard to see past Worthing. Until Sunday, every time we talked about it, we were like, Worthing are the best team bar us by quite a long way, weren't we? You know, the Kit King Trophy final showed that, didn't it? You know, how good Worthing were. You know, that was a top class game. And okay, at the weekend we proper gave them a CN2. That's going to be rare that they get that kind of CN2. So it's hard to look past a first versus second final. What are you thinking, Mike?
I'm probably going to go completely against what Risha said, because I think we'll play Derby in the final, which means TVC lose tomorrow. But I've got a feeling that I know they've lost 2 in a row, but I think Derby will show up tomorrow, and I think Derby will show up massively against Worthing. And then we get a repeat of the NBL final in Manchester again. That's how I think it'll play if we get there. And, yeah.
Okay.
So when we get to the final, we play Bradford. We all look stupid, don't we?
Yeah.
We'll just record another one where we all say Bradford are definitely going to win.
I was going to say, if it's a Loughborough Bradford final, we've done well.
Yeah, I think that's so Mike and I are basically saying that the finalists is coming out of that game tomorrow. Are all the games at the same time, out of interest, or are they staggered?
No. So if you are into watching your NBL basketball, 3:30 Reading Loughborough tomorrow. I think it's being streamed as well. Reading stream a lot of their games.
Nice.
Then we play at 7, and the Worthing Bradford and Derby TVC games are both at 7:30.
Okay.
So I'm sure we'll all be during quarter intervals and timeouts, as we always do in chats. There'll be and in the stands there'll be a few what's the scores on the doors and the other games, but we'll know our opponents before we tip.
But we probably don't want to know, because then we'll be thinking, oh yeah, we're going to be playing Reading or we're going to be playing Loughborough, and we haven't got past Solent at that point. So let's rein that in.
I was going to say, as long as hopefully Drew blocks out the lads finding out the result of that game, because we want to focus on. I mean, we can find out, obviously, but we don't. Yeah, they need to focus on the job in hand before we think about the next game.
Yeah,
I don't think he's going to let anything to take the blinkers off. What's going to be a tough job, right? So, should be interesting. And then we've got tomorrow. It's here already. I'm really excited, but a little bit nervous as well. And then we've got, really, I guess, thinking about the season overall. And I know we've had a couple of emails come out about MVP. It's probably a nice point to finish on, is just thinking about standout players, the MVP voting, which I think 3 categories is really difficult, just considering how good everyone's been in the starting 5, and then this concept of a 6th man of the season, or like that impact player. And I think we've had, again, you could probably pick anyone from the 7 on the bench, right? As to they've all come in and had an impact at different points in different games. But what are your thoughts, Rob, on sort of the MVP side of things?
So the votes you could do were for MVP, weren't they? Offensive player and defensive player. It's a real hard one. Often there's a standout, isn't there? Like for us last year, Taylor was MVP, wasn't he? That was almost not quite a given, because Greg had a great season as well, but was a little bit easier. This vote this time, you were going to leave. All of the starting 5 have been fantastic all season, haven't they? Like you talked about, the 6th man, Charles, Jack, Teo, Romario, Nick and Cavell, when they've had a chance, they've all performed at a really high standard. But for me, just because of the consistency and both ends of the court, I found it really hard to convince myself that I shouldn't vote for Aaron for MVP. And I know there'd be differences across us guys, but it was literally just because he is a beast at both ends of the court, isn't he? And how many times has he got a rebound at our end and just gone straight down the other end and scored? And I just think, particularly as he was an unknown to us guys, I know we watched some YouTube videos and stuff when we found out we'd signed him, but just the impact he's had has had has massively stepped us up, in my opinion. But then also, like, from an offensive point of view, there's games where you're like, oh, I don't think Taylor's played that well today. Oh yeah, but he's got 25 points. And you're like, or, you can't look past the MVPs at both cup finals. So for me, he was offensive player. And then we talked about it earlier, defensive player of the year for me is Hakeem. Just what he does in his own, around his own basket, out muscles people to make, and says, "Not in my house," like. But then it feels like there's a disservice there to the quality that Sam and Seth have put, played this season as well. Like we talked about earlier, Sam's just had his career high points. He's on, if he's not on double figure assists every game, he's pretty close, isn't he? Seth's 3-point shooting and game management is fantastic as well. So it's a real tough. Well, how about you, Mike? How have you seen it?
I found it quite hard voting for MVP. And again, everything should point to Aaron, but trying to look away from just purely based on stats, because you can go down a bit of a rabbit hole. I think we spoke about it a few times, just looking at stats, and you can make a clear run for who's going to get it. But for me, I think Sam's MVP. And again, it's hard to leave Aaron. It's very hard to leave Taylor out for everything that everyone does, the whole starting five. But I think Sam does stuff that the stats don't tell you. He kind of holds everything together. He dictates play. He controls the ball. His assist ability. The chances he creates that don't necessarily lead to baskets, but he's there passing the ball, getting into positions. For me, I think Sam's the MVP. Stats maybe won't show it, but I think what he's done for the season has been brilliant.
Well, the switch from shooting guard to point guard made a massive difference of Sam switching into that role, and it's brought his best basketball out of him, I think. Because like you said, he now dictates the play, dictates the moves. That just a number of highlights of that same move of alley-oop between him and Aaron. How many times has that happened this season?
Yeah. So I think Sam definitely MVP, and I think defensive and offensive are again quite hard to pick, especially when you look at offensive, because you're going to have to leave someone out.
Yeah.
I went for probably Hakeem defensive. Again, we spoke about, and again, doing the votes after this weekend's games, and Hakeem was phenomenal in both games.
Yeah.
I think he said at the end of Sunday it was his best weekend he's had this season. He felt, again, obviously due to the podcast last week, and then offensive. It was very, very hard for me to pick between Aaron and Taylor, and because Theo picked Taylor, I went with Aaron. So a vote each from our house, which I think is justified.
How do you see it, Rish?
Yeah, so as you say, it's a tough one. I think 3 awards is not enough. We could have maybe had a rookie award or something. There could have been a couple of others, but essentially, because obviously you want to pick everyone, you don't want anyone to not feel left out, really, because everyone's contributed so much. It's such a team thing. And you talk about Hakeem for Defensive Player of the Year, and I went there with Hakeem, but actually the work he does on defense, he does so much of that on the offensive side as well. And Mike, as you mentioned, the stats don't pick up all of the things. One of the things I think it doesn't pick up for Sam is the assist for the assist in some ways, as in what he does is so key for opening a play, and then there's an inside pass and then a 2-pointer and an easy bucket, but the pass beforehand was the thing that unlocked the defense, but that doesn't get the assist as such, although that was the reason why we're there. So I think I went with Aaron on the MVP vote in the end, just looking at numbers, and again both ends, great first season, and then with Sam on offensive, Hakeem on Defensive Player of the Year. But again, it could have been, could have switched any of them around in any order, and
really
again,
hard.
I'll be honest, it's it's crazy when you think about the performances of Taylor. Have been a bit more subtle in the league games, obviously exploding in the finals, those certain games where I think where teams have kind of mistakenly focused elsewhere, Taylor's just exploded into those games and just scored 40-odd points, so Taylor could be there as well. And the guys off the bench, Teo's been immense, a leader from the bench or on the court. It's Yeah, it's a real tough one. 3, I think, is
and,
hard.
and again, and that's without even mentioning how good Seth's been in his first season in England as well.
Exactly, Seth's had a brilliant season.
Yeah, and on and off the court as well. Speaking to Seth off the court, it's just all round. It was very, very hard to pick.
Yeah,
very hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I hope they all get an equal number of votes for everything, and everyone has to get.
It's all shared out. Yeah.
I was going to say, hopefully it's equal, but at the end of the season, even if they don't win an MVP, hopefully they're all sat there with four medals around their neck anyway. So I think it'll outweigh it a little bit.
They'll be okay.
I think the only thing we're missing, and I shouted at him to try and get him to do it at the weekend, was Seth to dunk it. So he was through, and I was going, dunk it, and that would just then I'd literally go, can I change my vote?
Yeah.
We'll get him some stilts or something for the Solent game tomorrow. Put some padding in his shoes, bless him.
But you talked about sixth man, Rish. Was that who's had the most influence from the bench?
It was interesting. It's just something I'd seen online actually. Was the idea of voting for a sixth man of the year sort of thing, and that can be, consistent contribution off the bench or a standout moment. It's whatever you decide that means, right? And that can even be, I guess, almost like non-playing award as well. But there's I think there's such a big contribution from a number of people. If you keep it within the playing unit, the people that come on when we need to change something up, and Drew sees a different matchup and wants to bring something on, those performances, which ones have made a difference. I think we talked about in the last podcast, like Romario comes on and just goes on a blitz of scoring and just turns a game around in a real short period of time. Hasn't maybe had as many minutes as he I won't say deserves, but hasn't had as many minutes as he would have thought. But those minutes have been really important. And Charles comes on and just his energy and his ability is just awesome. And that's Teo comes on and it's just gets stuck in, gets it's physical in there, knocks his threes down. It's I think that's
you're saying about Charles, and we talked about it, didn't we, on one of the previous podcasts about how many times we've watched his rejection at Worthing, which he then followed up a week or two later, and then we've watched Hakeem do the same thing at the weekend just gone. So now you've got normally we just go, well, someone scored a shot from the halfway line, or they dunked, whereas actually defensively, although I would say Hakeem had Taylor tell him to start wagging his finger, wouldn't you, after the shushing at the Worthing?
I think Hakeem did it. Yeah, Hakeem did it the first time, didn't he? I think he did it. He was shaking his head, walking off after his first block, and then he did one again. And then I think on the third one, Taylor kind of pulled him out of the crowd, put him in the middle of the court, and made him do it again. And Taylor was pointing to the floor, sort of like it's our house, and Hakeem was just wagging his finger. And I think we went 1 or 2 points up just after that. And it was a great moment.
But you could get anyone on the bench. Rish, you didn't even mention Jack. Jack can come on and sink a few threes and help us change a game. Or he also he can see a pass, can't he, as well? Which and then equally, Nick and Cavell come on, and okay, they often get time in games when the game's nearly won, but Cavell comes on and he wants to score a 3-pointer, doesn't he? And he'll do it until he scored that 3-pointer, and Nick will come on, and he's been at Storm on and off for some time now, grown up in it, and a great player to bring off the bench as well. And then you can like you said, your sixth man, you can talk about your coaching staff, you can talk about Hannah, you can talk about what Brian and Callum do sitting on the bench as well, and it's you then start to go, well, actually, we do need to create an award that best physiotherapist. There you go, Hannah. It's just there's there's so much goes on that has been and then we said it the other week as well. People like Charles and Teo and Jack, they could go be a starting 5 somewhere else if they wanted to.
Well, don't forget, Charles is the only other person that started a game this season in all competitions.
Yeah,
Charles is the only person. We've only had 6 different players start, and Charles has started twice.
Wow.
And that was the weekend when Taylor didn't play in both games.
yeah. That was the weekend before the Kit King Trophy final, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
There
the
should be an
only
award.
time.
Mike, there should be an award for stat of the year. That was it. I think that was awesome.
Do you remember though that the normal infographic of the starting 5 didn't go out that week?
It was the only time this season, yeah, because they didn't have it made. I think
they didn't have it. When you go to like other sports like football, particularly, where you'd be debating on who's gonna play. You know, that's one of the things. Who do you think he's going to pick today? You know, like we can't have that debate, can we? Because it's like,
you look at other teams in the league, and you look at even Worthing, who are second, and they mix their starting 5 up a bit as well.
Yeah.
But we seem to have that ability where our guys on the bench don't get annoyed by that. And I think that's the gold medals around their neck are justifying it, and it's working. So
absolutely, it works as a unit.
The atmosphere is brilliant.
You know, not having that picture of the starting 5, what we could have done is, you know, Charles could have done what he does for the NBL Team of the Week.
Crossed him out.
That would have been good as well.
I think it's obviously we've just talked about MVP and Offensive Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year. It's probably worth saying that there is an awards evening, isn't there, on the 21st of April, Friday, the 21st of April, where obviously we'll then find out whether who we voted for got it and who other people did. But I'm sure the club would appreciate people attending if they can.
Absolutely, it's going to be a great night. Lots to celebrate.
Very, very reasonably priced as well, and 2 days before the playoff final, so chance to wish the boys good luck. Hopefully,
I also heard that there's an award for best Storm-related podcast. We're not getting it.
we weren't on the short list. We weren't voted for.
No one voted for us. Yeah.
Well, at least when we're there, we can make sure none of the players are sneaking any beers as well. That they're focused. We'll do the work for Drew. Yeah. Keep an eye on them.
I think Mike will pick up some buds for him, won't he?
Yeah.
I don't mind taking one for the team.
Good man. Well, I think that just about wraps it up. So we've got the first playoff game tomorrow. First of 3. Let's finish on a high. But yeah, thanks for joining, guys.
See you soon.
It's a pleasure. See you soon.